What is up, guys? My name is Chris Woolsey. I'm an actor in Chicago. I've been acting and therefore auditioning for pretty much my whole life. So I thought what I'd do is I'd make a video with a bunch of tips and tricks that I've learned for auditioning along the way and hopefully give you guys some tools that you can use in your next audition. So without further ado, here are my top 7 mind-blowing audition tips to help you land your next big role. Tip number 1. Your headshot. I get this question a ton. People want to know, what photographer should I use? What should my budget be? How often should I update my headshot? I'm going to make this incredibly simple for you, okay? Your headshot does not get you the role. You get you the role. I'll show you what I use. This is a headshot of Steve Zahn, just printed off black and white, my home printer. People have told me that I look like him, and I think subconsciously, casting director is going to look at it and they're going to be like, oh yeah, I could see this guy in a movie. Tip number 2, your resume. There are basically 2 schools of thought on this one, and personally, I use my professional resume because they're going to look at that and they're going to see how many different jobs I've had in the service industry, and they'll be like, oh, this guy's been acting for a really long time. Tip number 3, your slate. So you're in the room, they have your headshot and resume. The next thing they're going to have you do is they're going to have you slate, which is just you simply saying your name and your agency. For me, this is very simple, as I'm currently unrepresented. So I would just say, hello, my name is Chris Woolsey. But I don't have to say it like that. You have to remember, acting is all about showing emotion. And this is your first opportunity to show the room your acting chops. So don't waste it. So this is what I do. I say, hello, my name is Christopher Woolsey. Boom. Right there. I've already shown them the 3 major human emotions: happiness, sadness, anger. And I'm telling you, every casting director that I've done this for has been stunned. Tip number 4, your look. So this one is going to be very discouraging, and you're going to hear it a lot. You're going to hear that your audition doesn't even matter and that they're just casting people based on their looks. And do you know what I say to that? They're right. That's why over the course of an audition, I try to give them as many various looks as I possibly can. And one great way to do that is just with a scarf. So I'll come in the room, I'll have the scarf on. Right now, I look like myself, mid-20s, late teens type. I'll say my line, whatever, and then the other person will have their line. They'll be talking, and then, while that's happening, I will change my look. It'll come back to me, and I'm like a grandma type, Oh, where are my pots? Who has all of my pots? And then it'll go back to them, and they'll say whatever, blah, blah, blah. I'm not listening anyway, it doesn't really matter. And then it'll come back to me and like, hey, what's going on over here? It's like a tough guy up here. Hey, Rambo's walking over here. Yo, hey. Tip number 5, submit, submit, submit. So don't fall into this trap of you see a call and it says seeking males age 25 to 30 and then thinking, oh my gosh, well, I'm 35, so I'm too old for that. Stop it. The simple fact is that you never know what they're looking for. I can't tell you how many times I've auditioned for the vagina monologues. Tip number 6, your range. So you're gonna wanna show them your range. And what do I mean by this? Let's say that you're given a line that says, Tony says it's really cool. Well, don't just throw it away and give them just this really plain line reading. The casting director will very happily say, thank you for that boring, uninspired take. There's the door, you won't be hearing from us, and you will never work in this town again. Yeah, a lot of people think it's a myth that people say that, but I can't tell you how many times I've heard you will never work in this town again. And look at me now, right? I'm making a video on YouTube. So anyway, back to the line, showing your range. Tony says it's really cool. This is your opportunity to become Tony. You have to think about it. Who is Tony? Maybe Tony's from New York. Makes sense. 15% of people from New York are called Tony. What borough is he from? Is he from Brooklyn? Does he talk like this? Like, hey, I'm Tony. Is he from the Bronx? Does he sort of sound like this? Is he like a Bronx sort of tough guy? From Queens, hey, from Queens. Make sure whatever you do, you make it incredibly specific. I would actually recommend just doing a Southern accent because that one is really easy to do and there's only one. Tip number 7, props. So if the scene you're in calls for a cell phone, guess what? You have one in your pocket. Use it. Don't be afraid to pull it out, you know? If the scene calls for you to have a cup of coffee, just bring a cup of coffee, drink a cup of coffee, you know? If you're auditioning for a police drama and it calls for you to have a gun, bring the most realistic gun that you can find, you know? If you have a real one, bring that. It's like that Chekhov saying, you know, that very famous Chekhov saying, if there's a gun in the first act, bring one to your audition. So those are my 7 mind-blowing audition tips. I hope you found them useful. Best of luck out there. Break a leg.